Oh, no. Alright, you wanna just go into it and see where it leads us without much plan? Mhm. Yeah, actually yeah, I think, I was kinda thinking about this. I think we should like, we can intro it and what's going on, but I think it'd be kinda cool to, like, if we're just talking to each other and not, like, an audience, you know? But yeah, we could do an intro, just be like, "Hey, this is what we're doing. We're just recording some conversations and just catching up and just we don't know what we're doing yet, but just trying this out and having a conversation between people." Mhm. Yeah, exactly, and then people like, I kinda think of it like the whole Ask Gary Vee show minus the call-in questions where 2 people are talking about catching up. You never know where the conversation goes. Sometimes it's, like, super informative where guests, like, just dropping a whole bunch of bombs on Gary Vee about just, like, random stuff, like, that Gary Vee has no idea about, like, some industry, and then Gary's like, "Oh, I think about this," and then, "Okay, what do" then he'll ask, like, "Oh, wait, do you do this? Like, what do you use? What do you think about this?" And I think that's how it could be. S Mhm. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, like geek, stuff. Yep, yep. Mhm, mhm. Hmm, okay, interesting. We should talk about that actually, like, while this is recorded. Yeah, I'm checking out IGN's Twitter and Instagram right now. Holy moly. Mm, really? Huh. Sure. Like, new games and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Uh-huh. Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you're just trying to entertain, right? That's what the company's trying to do. Alright, cool. Um, yeah, let's just go into it. We'll just talk for maybe, 30 minutes to an hour or something like that. I don't know. Gotta get to bed at a decent time tonight. Okay. Okay. Are you recording right now, by the way? Oh, are you? Oh, I didn't realize we started. Yeah, I was like, "Wait, just hold on, let's save this for this is good stuff." Uh, yeah, let's okay, how yeah, because I don't think you introed anything. We should intro something a little bit, and then jump in. Yep, yep. No, you absolutely. Yeah, I'm, like, trying to, like, hold bite my tongue this whole time. I'm like, "Oh, I wanna talk about this, but I'm gonna save it." Alright, alright. Yeah, you wanna intro it? Good, good. Thanks for, meeting with me to do this. Like you said, to intro myself, I'm Sam, aka Just Casual, Sam Han. I was a guest on the Esports Narrative, and I guess pretty early episodes, huh? I don't know what episode number, but it's 11. Oh, nice. It was episode 1 for me. Um, but yeah, I do some other podcasts, mostly involving League of Legends. That's kind of my specialty. I've been playing League since season 1 and created a podcast about 3 years ago called the Lola Podcast, and then, dabbling in other podcast stuff with, like, Walden Green, who is in the League scene and other esports scenes, and, diving into the amateur, scene with some, Ever Esports organization. But, yeah, Spence and I was just talking on Twitter because I love what he was doing, and I caught it early on, and I'm like, "Hey, like, I I like this. I think the podcast space needs more people and more competition to really like push people to make better content." And I was really surprised to see Spencer kind of hitting it, hitting the ground running really fast and hard and actually like good quality stuff, which is always nice to see because sometimes
Yeah.
it takes people a while
Thank
to get
you.
their footing. But I'm like, let's talk about things because I personally don't really have anyone to talk about when it comes to like my struggles. Like there's plenty of people I can complain to. You know, my wife hears me complaining every now and then and stuff like that. But
Sure.
like no one, there's not many people that really understand what we're doing or what we are trying to do or what we're trying to accomplish. What I get from most of my friends like, oh, that's really cool. You're like passionate about it and you're trying to do something like that. And I'm like, I don't. need that like good job, Sam. Like I want to like talk about like what we're doing and you to actually understand what I'm talking about. That's something that I like deal with when I'm talking to people
Yeah.
about what I do.
Yeah, me too. I've been finding recently, like doing this, like there's forums and there's like random stuff out there, but to actually have like build up like a rapport with someone and kind of get to know someone, kind of talk about some of the things that we're struggling with day to day, I think is really nice. And I think it might provide some value for people that are following the same suit. So I think a lot of the stuff we'll discuss will probably be a lot of the same struggles that a lot of people have starting up a podcast or a show or just starting a new venture in and of itself. You know, if you're just getting into something, like if you want to be a photographer and you're just getting into it, like find somebody that is doing it, or just starting too. I was just talking to one of my designer friends on Twitter earlier today, and I'm like, yeah, there's somebody that's helping me out with graphics. Shout out to Lauren at Lauren FPS. She's been helping me with some graphics, and I was telling one of my first guests, actually Sam, it's like, yeah, she's doing great, and it's really nice to have someone who's there kind of going along the way with you, so you can bounce ideas off of and just kind of have like an honest conversation about like what's working, what's not, like what are your opinions on things that are happening, because technology moves so fast. The internet is just making things so flat in terms of being able to reach people. Like the world is flat when it comes to the internet.
Even though things come full circle.
Yeah.
Ha. I destroyed your metaphor. I'm sorry.
Crushed, wrecked.
Yeah. But yeah, when we got together to decide to do this kind of, really for ourselves, like we mentioned, and it's going to be weird because even though this is a podcast format, it might go on YouTube, whatever we do with it, we're not really sure what the direction is. We're not really going to be talking to the audience, and it's going to be more of just like a look into our conversations. And we have like bullet points of just like, I just like puked into this document that we have here, just like all these questions or topics that I think we could talk about. This could be hours and hours long, and we're not going to do that. But no idea what the frequency of these are going to be. No idea if this will be the first and last one. No idea if this is the first of like 2000. But yeah, hopefully you guys find some value in this. I'm sure some of you will if you find this. But yeah, it's going to be mostly just a conversation between me and Spencer and see where it goes.
Yeah, so one of the first things, like I was talking about earlier, was like listening to Gary Vee. He always talks about creating a media company, and like if you're trying to brand something or produce content around something, like you're a media company, then you're a podcast host, or you're a media company, then you're a real estate agent, or whatever it is. And
Yep.
The way that I think about it, I was trying to find examples of that in like the gaming space to see like what gamers, like people like you and I, are consuming, like what type of content. So I came across IGN's account, and I'm like, wow, they produce a lot of video content. And then I started digging into it, and like they produce a lot of content, and it seems to be not a lot of it is video game related. A lot of it's comic book related or superhero stuff related and stuff like that. So what I was thinking was, producing for my own show, like producing content that's just gaming related. It doesn't have to be, or not even gaming related, but just something that my audience would like, or that demographic of audience would like, to kind of build up my brand as like a media company, quote unquote, to kind of draw people in to what I care about and the things that I think are interesting to me, and kind of create some gateway content to then listening to my podcast and stuff like that.
Sure. And so yeah, I totally get what you're saying with the whole Gary Vee thing and where it comes with that. And actually, it's interesting because when I was doing like my vlogs on my YouTube channel more regularly, I haven't done one in a while, which is bad. But also, I gotta, I don't know, I gotta figure out what I want to do with that. But Brad Chmielewski, he is a guy that owns an animation like marketing company, advertising company,
Hmm.
but on the side he was like one of the top rated players in Vainglory, which is a mobile MOBA, the 3v3 MOBA, which I guess is changing to 5v5 soon. And I was on his podcast, Shadow the Vein, but he commented on one of my vlogs, and he was saying that like, you know, Gary Vee pushes really hard that you're supposed to do like all this stuff. You kind of keep working, keep hustling, use every hour you can, stop complaining, all this kind of stuff. And then he's like, yeah, but you got to remember he has a whole team behind him, right?
Yeah.
And IGN is a big organization with a lot of people with a lot of different strengths.
Hmm.
It's not IGN is not one person behind it. So I think it's good that you noticed that. I think there's some balance between like, yeah, add extra content, put some memes on your in your Twitter feed and stuff like that, but at the same time you also have to focus on your craft, right? Because you and I mean, I don't know how long you've been in the podcasting stuff. I just know Esports Narrative is relatively new or very new.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for 3 years and I still don't feel like very, I'm not like I'm not an expert host of a podcast, so I don't know everything about podcasting. And he talks about, you know, you just like, you put your head down and grind and you shut up and you grind and grind and grind until you're really good and you keep your focus narrow so you're really good at that one thing, and then eventually you can start like talking and being an expert in that, right? And Brad was just like, yeah, you got to make sure you're not doing too much because you're gonna lose focus. And at least what I was getting from what he said is like, you're gonna lose focus. You just can't do all the things that Gary Vee does because he has a whole team behind him, just like
Hmm.
IGN has a whole company behind them making all this ridiculous content that's just not just the new releases of video games and video game reviews. So
Yeah.
I think you have to be a little careful.
Yeah, I think it's a balance, right? It's like how much do you
Mhm.
spend producing your content versus promoting it, and how perfect do you want your content to be versus, you know, how much do you want to just get it out there? And then there's also the discussion of document versus create and that, and it's like, you know, you ultimately, for me, like I want to produce good content. Like obviously that's the number one goal. The number two goal is to just continually try and create new ways to engage people and get them interested in caring about my show. And
Mhm.
to me, that comes from producing content, like outside of the show. So like getting people, getting attention from people to watch or listen, you know, to the show is something that I struggle with right now, because it's like you said, you want to be really good at the podcast, you want to be really good at interviewing guests and the way it all works and everything like that. But I also know that I myself tend to be kind of a perfectionist, so
Mhm.
I have to like fight my inner demons to like not be such a perfectionist and just get content out there that I think is good. And I think what I
Mhm.
produce in my podcast, I think is really good. It could be better. The sound quality can be better. You know, I could be less scripted, and those are all things I'm working on. But I think
Mhm.
just by me producing the podcast and putting it out there, and then us talking about it, especially, is kind of like that process of just documenting my way. I'm not really saying it during the podcast, but it's my way of just showing, you know, because I could spend 5 hours mastering my podcast and get it sounding perfect,
Mhm.
and just every second of it sounding perfect. But to me, I think to myself, would that really impact my show enough versus the time that I spend on that? You know, where I could be getting other guests on or promoting my show and stuff like that. So, like, I want to get to it. I want to get it to a certain point where it's really good and I'm really happy with it, and then work on other things that are a little bit more ROI positive than spending 10 hours to learn how to master a podcast and then 5 hours to, you know, practice it, and then another hour to master a half an hour long episode. You know, those
Yeah.
are things I'll learn as I go, and I'm getting better at that. Like I got a mixer, so the sound quality will be better and stuff like that. So I'm
Okay.
doing stuff as I go along, and I'm trying to, get to a point where I'm becoming, proficient in the craft of podcasting, if you will. But I also
Sure.
want to be proficient in promoting and marketing and branding my show, and I like
Yeah.
I like looking at examples of that, not to be able to imitate them because IGN is huge, Gary Vaynerchuk has a huge team, but see what they do because one example is Gary V put out a video, and it was like a 50-second video on Twitter, and it was from Anchor. And you know how you can do like the quotes, or not the quotes, the
Yep.
captions.
Hmm.
Well, he put out a video from Anchor. It was the captions, and he had like a little block of text on the bottom, and it was like, follow the show here. It was like super simple, and he put it out there. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I've put out like four, 5, 6, 7 of those, the exact same thing, just without like the fancy thing on the bottom because I'm not good at video yet. But I put out the same thing, and I felt really good about it because I was like, wow, I did something. I put out content that like Gary Vee, like his kind of style would put out. So I was kind of proud that I was like doing stuff to kind of put that out there. So
Hmm.
I like just being able to learn and see what content is popular amongst people and how it looks and the format and everything like that. Not to necessarily produce that volume of content, but for ideas of what to post and the type of content to post. You know what I mean? Is kind of what I look
Yeah. Yeah.
for.
No, that's good. I do something similar too. At first I was kind of looking at what the other like League of Legends podcasters do, and then I kind of realized I'm trying to be something. I'm not trying to like compete and be bigger than them, but at the same time, I'm trying to like create something that I'm happy with, and I want to make it really good and professional. And there's just no one to look up to in that space when it comes to League of Legends podcast. And the closest one would be Riot's produced podcast, I think. Riot produces a pod. They did the League Community podcast, which I thought was great, and like hosting and personalities, how they did it was awesome. I I'm sad that they stopped doing that, but now they're doing the Dive podcast, which is like three of the casters, and they talk very intelligently about the games, and like
Hmm.
they're good personalities. They've been working together for a while, and it's like really entertaining and easy to listen to. So like I'm looking at those people, and like just like you said, IGN. Like I was following a few tech Instagram accounts because I was like, how, or gaming Instagram accounts, because I'm like, how am I supposed to do like League of Legends, or how am I supposed to do gaming on Instagram? Because I think we talked about this on the podcast before. Like for League of Legends or esports, like it's just memes and cosplay. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm trying to do. Yes, I should meme.
Yeah.
Memeing is good. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's like the language of esports. But I'm like, I don't see how Instagram works for esports really well, and I think it's not here yet when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's weird
Yeah.
because there's definitely a lot of cosplay and memeing on in like highlight video, like the old snipe
Yeah.
videos, but like
Mhm.
with CS:GO or other game, like even League of Legends and stuff like that. But like I said earlier, like I feel like it's almost gateway content. I feel like it's you can. I feel like you can only produce so much content from your podcast. Like if you pull your content from your podcast and you create like little quotes or snippets of videos, that's only so much content you can create. And I feel like to get to
Mhm.
the next level, we have to like produce content that is appealing to our audience, but not necessarily League of Legends or not necessarily highlights from our podcast or things like that. I feel like there might be an opportunity to create content on Instagram that's kind of like those meme videos or quotes or things like that. That's kind of related or is
Mhm.
interesting to our audience that will maybe draw them in and be like, hey, this account is posting really funny, maybe it's like really funny fail videos or something like that, but it's related to gaming content, like gaming fails or
Mm.
something like that, or maybe it's just specific to League or something like that. If you I feel like there might be an opportunity for that, but I agree that it is kind of difficult because the audience seems to be really young on Instagram for gaming, like really
Mhm.
young and kind of that immature, um, age for gaming content. So like you've said before, like you kind of want to have intelligent discussions around a game, whereas 13-year-olds on the internet maybe not having a lot of those conversations. I'm sure some of them are, but
No, I get you. Yeah, I get you. We're trying to be like politically correct here, but yeah,
yeah,
we both know what we're trying to say.
yeah. I mean,
Something I want. Yeah, go ahead. Finish
I,
it up.
I was just gonna say, I think there's it's like how Gary Vee talks about underpriced attention and stuff like that. I think there's an opportunity
Yeah.
on all the platforms. It's just figuring out what works, and maybe Instagram doesn't work as well as Twitter or other platforms right now, but that's one area that I've been weak on recently is Instagram. I just haven't been able to produce the type of content that works good on it right now because it's like meme videos and like meme quotes and stuff like that take a little bit longer to produce. So
Hmm. Yeah, actually, yeah, you have to find um the native whatever the native content is for that specific platform. So if it's Instagram, like I'm even thinking, if it's cosplay and memes, then you got to start making yourself a meme and putting that somehow on there, right? Because I remember, so Gary Vee talks about Musically a lot, right? Or
hmm
not a lot, but every now and then he talks about Musically and how big it's gonna be. And I went on to it when he talked about it. I'm like, he's barely on this thing. But I looked at a few things and he's like, they create almost like a joke music, like almost like a remix of like
hmm
maybe a quote of his that kind of
yeah,
follows a beat and that kind of is like silly, like the auto-tune remix. I'm like, oh, that's clever, you know? Maybe that's how it's supposed to be on Instagram. Maybe you hack it by like, or in Twitter, you meme yourself because Twitter has plenty of memes, but Instagram, maybe it's somehow you like incorporate a cosplay. Maybe you like cosplay yourself horribly and it's just so
yeah.
bad it's funny. That's how you get the eyes on your content, and then it goes viral. You get 20,000 likes, and then only 1% of that converts. Like that's a lot of people still. Maybe that's
Yeah,
how you hack it. I don't.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I know I know Gary Vee talks about he's talked about it like very lately in some of his content, but he talks about like some of the Instagram accounts he owns. So I'm thinking
mm-hmm.
like he has maybe like purchased or bought out some like really popular Instagram accounts, like meme accounts and things like that to kind of test his theses on. So that's kind of something that interests me too, is like if our shows make money and things like that, or you have the opportunity to invest in your endeavor, that's something that's interesting to me. Like you find like a semi-popular meme account on Instagram, you essentially buy them out and turn it into a business where you're like promoting and getting promoted on that account, and you kind of use that as like gateway content and be like, this is X podcast meme account kind of thing, and that's
Mm-hmm.
your like funny meme account, and you kind of can push awareness and audience that way.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to do that with like my Snapchat. I was trying to keep because the whole Instagram versus Snapchat, like how to use which one and like which one is gonna win, which one should I focus on,
Yeah,
and then yeah, we keep saying Gary Vee because we both digest a lot of Gary Vee stuff. Like Gary Vee's like you do both, and then when Snapchat dies, like you learned all that stuff from Snapchat and you go to Instagram, and then suddenly Snapchat comes back because they released an update in 2019 that makes it super relevant, and then suddenly all
yeah,
that knowledge you've had from Snapchat, you just bring it right back on Snapchat and you're like the number one guy there. So I was like, Snapchat should be casual. And like, I was trying to give my Snapchat like more personal, like funny flair. And then my
yeah,
Instagram's like, this is what I'm doing for the podcast. These are my daily updates.
yeah.
I keep it up
I
because I'm weak. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean when you start trying to produce the content, you realize how. And now, granted, there's a lot of people that have teams and they have help, but just the amount of content that some people and brands produce is just astonishing. When you look at all the platforms they're on and all the content they create, it's just crazy. And for one person like you and I to produce that, it's like you almost have to like do what you said, like you just said, and do like Snapchat is behind the scenes, Instagram is more promotional, or maybe more produced content, and then Twitter's like the quick blurbs, and you're
Hmm.
the water cooler, and that's kind of how I think about it. Now, I find it hard to right now like push audience and awareness to my Snapchat. Like I don't know how many Snapchat views you get. I have like 18 at most. Like when everyone views my Snapchat, it's like 18 right now.
Uh-huh.
And it's all my friends, like close friends and family. So it's like no one that
Yeah.
consumes my podcast, even though like I try and put stuff out there, but it's hard to like show someone what to expect on your Snapchat unless you like take your snaps and like make a video of it and like promo it. Like it's hard to show that. And if you're not interesting by default, I feel like no one's going to want to follow your Snapchat stories or your Instagram stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like to me right now, like I was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna push this super hard. I'm gonna learn everything about this social media and everything. And now I'm like on the other fence, like, you know what? I'm spending way too much time on this. I need to make sure like I'm doing like my craft well. So I've kind of taken a step back and become a little more invisible.
Yeah.
And that's my balance right now. And I'm glad I have kind of an understanding, but I have to ramp up a little bit. And honestly, like even though I've been saying that you have to do like all of them, I might really just stick with Instagram because I feel like I don't have the time or I'm not willing to give the time needed to do all of it, right? I'm not willing to
Sure.
learn Snapchat and Instagram and be good on both. So therefore, I'm just going to pick Instagram and put my extra time into that. And if Instagram dies, that's perfectly fine. It's a little bit of bad luck. I go to Snapchat and learn how to do Snapchat and some things will transfer, you know? I might be a little behind, but more importantly, if I have bad content, period, then it doesn't matter how well I market it, you know?
Yeah. The one thing I like about Snap better than Instagram right now is that there's no like there's no follower count to be able to link people and like do the swipe up thing on Snap, which is nice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's nice. You with Instagram you need
I didn't know
10,000.
that.
Yeah, with Instagram you need 10,000 followers in order to like link
Oh,
a website or something for people to swipe up. So I was like, well,
gosh.
if I'm doing Instagram stories, like I want to do like, hey, this is the episode and do like promos, and that was my main reason was so that people could swipe up and take some action on it. But I found that I couldn't do it unless I had 10,000 followers on Instagram. But on
Uh,
Snapchat, you can just do it anytime and just have people swipe up. So that's kind of one nice thing.
mhm.
And the other nice thing with Snapchat is the longer form videos. Like if you hold down the video, you can create a longer, like I think you can record up to 10 videos or something like that. Like 10,
Oh, okay.
however, 10, 30-second, no, 20 seconds? Yeah, 10, 20
It's
second.
short.
Yeah, I think it's like 10, 20-second videos. So you get like 2 minutes total or something like that. I don't know exactly. But with Instagram, I think you're limited just by that one 20 seconds or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's kind of
man.
nice. But I think it's a safe bet betting on Instagram. I don't see Snap going away. Like I think there's a lot of like advertising on it. Like just now, if you go on Snap, there's a lot of news and paparazzi and it's like the tabloids almost.
Yeah, I actually hate it, and then I find myself clicking it. I'm like, oh, why am I clicking on this?
Well, I like it because IGN is on there, so I'll give another shout out to IGN. But
Mm.
I don't know if you can see
Yeah.
IGN.
IGN, please sponsor this.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't really
There's
see it, but
Deadpool right there.
yeah, you go to the Discover and there's IGN. They kind of have like cool stories. And again, I just look at it, not that I can produce that level of content because that's more
Mhm.
for brands and established media companies and stuff, but it's just ideas of like things you can do to get an inspiration from. But I don't think Instagram's going away anytime soon. Same with
Yeah.
Snap. So I think it's a safe
Yeah.
bet.
One thing I wanted to ask you. Let's see if I can remember this while I kind of slightly stall. We were talking about this earlier. Oh, you're talking. Well, okay. Question is, how long? How long did it take for you to actually finally release your first episode? Like, was it like you woke up one day and you're like, "Hey, I want to do this," and you did it the next day, or was it like something that's been on your mind for a while?
So I started thinking about, well, I've been wanting to do something in esports for a while. So like ever since I was a gamer, like I think the dream is always to play video games for a living. So,
Yep, yep.
but more recently, I started thinking about what I want to do long term, and I started uh, looking at different avenues that I could get into. And I think that started probably, I would say, around July. So around the beginning of July, maybe even June. So maybe like June or July, I started thinking about kind of my career and things I wanted to do and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And on August 7th, I released my first episode, and I started recording, I want to say it was the end of July. So I think it was the 24th. I started recording stuff and getting stuff together, and then I started recording like that week and the next week.
Okay.
So about 2 weeks of like prep and recording to get my first. I think I launched with 5 episodes. So I did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I launched with 5 episodes.
Hmm.
Um, and that was the 7th. I was the first podcast, August 7th, on a Monday, and then I went that whole week. So it was about a month or two of like debating what I wanted to do, finding a name, like looking up domains and Twitter handles, and the longest part was figuring out a name. Honestly, like I
Isn't
felt
that so stupid that that's the longest part? I know exactly what you mean.
because I thought a lot about brand and like what I wanted to be, and I didn't want to do the
Uh,
news. Like I didn't want to cover like current event type stuff, and I
uh,
wanted it to be more in-depth discussions, and like deeper dives into my guest's story and have like a unique spin on it. Because what I saw was I looked at ESPN and their podcast, I looked at the Score, and I looked at what other people were doing, and all of them cover the news. They all talk about like this happened in this league, and there was this drama in that league, and I wanted to do something different, obviously, to be unique, to kind of stand out. So it took me like a month or two to kind of really figure out what I wanted to do, and honestly, coming up with a name was the hardest part because I feel like the name has to be good, and I feel like the name is the first person. It's the first thing you see on Twitter is like
mhm.
their handle. If you don't have a good handle and if it isn't immediately relatable, and um, it doesn't make sense or it doesn't say what you're all about, I think it's a, a drawback. I think,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't wait too long, but it took me like a month or two to really figure out all of the nitty gritty of what I wanted to be and the name and domain and get that set up and everything like that. But once I started recording, it was like 2 weeks to get content out, and it's been you know a month now.
Wow, it's only been a month. You put out so much content. It's actually really impressive. I'm like very like weirdly proud of you. That I'm like,
Thanks.
this guy is like doing it. This is awesome. Like,
Thanks. Well,
because I, yeah.
I've only been doing it for a month, so that's nothing to I think you said 3 years.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I've been doing it for 3 years. We have at least 160 episodes of the Lola podcast. But I mean, if you're putting out what, 3 episodes of a week?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? That's
Yeah.
a year, man. You caught up to me. So it's it's really impressive. I'm wondering if you're gonna burn out, like how your schedule is gonna change, like how tough is it for you to do this right now?
Yeah, that's something that I considered, and I when I started, honestly, I thought I was going to do 5 episodes a week, and I right now have enough guests, and I could do it content wise, but
Mhm.
financially I just can't afford the hosting to do that. Like I could put it up on
Oh,
YouTube,
okay.
and I
Yeah.
could put it up on YouTube and be like fine, like do it all for free, right? Like record it, put it
Yep.
on
Yep.
YouTube, completely free. But I really wanted to get it on iTunes, and in order to do that, you need to host it somewhere. So for me, the hosting is like the most expensive part, and that's like I started out and I was like, the free or like the basic plan is like $5 a month, And I was like, oh, this is sweet. Like, this is super cheap to get started. And then I recorded like 10 or 15 episodes, and I was like out of storage, and I was like, crap. And then I had to bump it up, and I had to bump it up. I think I had to bump it up twice. And I'm like, man, if I go anymore,
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to be able to afford to do this as a side hustle. So I
Mhm.
my ultimate goal is to do more, but I know that I know that promoting is just as important. So it might be one of those things where I scale it back as the show gets better and do um, less shows, but more promoting of the shows, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I really I love the way you are repurposing your content. It's like it's funny because so I just found Gary Vee very recently, just this year, and like it's cool to see someone doing his stuff, especially as you like starting, because I'm like, oh, like I should write PDFs or like a blog post on every episode that we do for the Lola podcast. I should create all these sound clips. I should have video content. I should, be
Yeah.
tweeting little snippets and like these graphics on Instagram. And I'm like, damn, this guy's actually doing it.
Yeah.
Man, like I'm like, crap. What am I doing?
Well, there's when you think about it, there is so much content, like micro content, if you will, some people call it, like
Mhm.
from the content you produce. Like if you produce an hour long podcast, you're gonna have micro content somewhere in there. Like what,
So much.
yeah, and what I'm doing right now is I'm taking like, the biggest quotes or the most impactful statements from my guests and like turning them into quotes or like little videos with subtitles, and that's all I've
Mhm.
really been doing right now. I'd like to create more written content about like certain topics that we cover, or maybe we talk about like failure, and I just create like a blog post about my thoughts on failure and how I think about it and how I think, little failures are good and how you can, learn a lot from them, stuff like that. There's so much that you can do. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it. And
Yeah.
the skill of creating good content that people want to read or listen to or watch is really important too. But right now, going back to what you said about burnout and stuff like that, right now, when I get into something, like I go really, really, really heavy deep into it, and then there's a point where I kind of dial it back a little bit, and I either go on to something new, honestly, quite honestly,
Mhm.
or I continue it and it's just something I really love doing and I just continue on with it. So one example of that is I used to do photography. I used to
Okay.
do weddings and engagement photography and portraits, stuff like
Oh,
that.
cool.
I did that for like 3 years and I was really heavy into it. I was doing a bunch of weddings, and then it got to be a lot of work, and it got to be really time consuming on the weekends and things like that. And it took away from family time. So I stopped doing it. So this, I feel like, is kind of the same, but I think it's different in some aspects too, because I think it's something that I want to be doing long term. And I have a longer term strategy kind of behind it. Like, I'm not going to be, in this office, like producing this podcast forever. I'm going to be doing other things, or I want to be doing other things in gaming. So there's kind of like a back end strategy to create some sort of brand in this industry and use that as like a gateway to other things. But what about you? Like, you've been doing it for 3 years, so you definitely could maybe have some insights on the burnout factor.
Yeah, oh man, I hit it. So I have a unique situation, for better or for worse, because for you, you are the one guy basically behind it all, right?
Hmm.
It's your voice. It's you don't have other co-hosts. You have someone helping you with graphics, but I mean, it's you. You're
Yep.
doing it. It's your content. It's your baby. For me, I started my League podcast 3 years ago because I got to plat and I was like, wow, I play so much of this game. my climb from like bronze to platinum in like one season was amazing. I learned so much. I'm like, people need to be learning how to play this game like this because it's so much more fun being like good at the game,
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm still crap at the game. But uh, getting getting deeper into like the strategic understanding and mechanics of the game. So I like found a podcast to join. It didn't go so hot. And then after that, I'm like, I kind of like this podcasting, but it's gonna fade. And 6 months later, I'm like, it's not gone. So I started a podcast, and it was just like two buddies. Actually, not even two buddies. It's kind of like I've met one guy was on the podcast, so I podcasted with him for like 3 episodes, and then the other guy was a friend of a friend who I played a few games with. And I'm like, this guy kind of knows what he's talking about. So it was a serious, just like let's just like chill, drink some beers, and talk about League, like things that we like. And um, it wasn't until like this maybe a year and a half ago where I was like, hey, could I do this? Could I really push this? And how far could I go? You know, like could I
Yeah.
make this a career? So it wasn't then. It wasn't until then that I took it really seriously. And because I am part of a team, and no fault of them, where I've created a team where it's like we're just guys that want to casually podcast and have fun. Suddenly, my expectations and my goals have changed, while everyone else has gotten busier and it's kind of gotten a little more stale to them. But at the same time, they really enjoy the community and playing games with each other. So we're on totally two different like planes of expectations and goals. So that causes a lot of difficulty for me. And this might be a little bit of me complaining, but I'm just like, I feel like I am limited because it's a group effort where I really have to depend on them because my co-hosts are all better and more knowledgeable, arguably, but I really, really depend on them
Right.
a lot. And when I am not able to do it myself, I can't have a roundtable conversation about things about League of Legends by myself. It doesn't work that way, you know? So I'm like at the mercy of someone else, and I don't have control of how far I can take it. So
Yeah.
when I get really down about things or really discouraged, like unfortunately that's where my mind goes. I'm just like, oh, like I can only do so much. I want to make video content, and these guys aren't like changing the title of the stream when we go live, or like they're not showing up on time, or they're not prepping enough for the episodes, or as much as I would like them to prep, like I can't
Yeah.
ask them to do more than they are. Like I don't want to do that because that's not right of me to do that to these guys that signed up to do this for free and to have fun, and they want to do this casually. So that has caused a lot of burnout on my end because it's like fighting an uphill battle for me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I'm like putting a lot more efforts on my solo stuff, like with the Weldon podcast and reaching out to every esports and things like that. So burnout is totally real. I've experienced it so many times, and sometimes it's shorter than others, but I think like I need to put like posters or constant reminders about why I'm doing it because I lose sight of that. It's easy to lose sight of that when you're like really
For
narrowly
sure.
focused or you're grinding hard and things just suck. So I have to remind myself like, yeah, why I'm doing that constantly. Once that happens, and once I like record a Weldon podcast, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't done this for 3 weeks because I was on vacation or something. I'm like, oh, I love it. This is why I'm doing this. And then I'm suddenly like, I'm back on cloud nine, you know? So
Yeah. For
it's
me,
weird.
like you've been doing it for a while now. And for me,
Mhm.
it's kind of the same thing. I'm doing it solo, like you said, but for me, it's like the startup woes of like low viewership, like low
Yep.
engagement, the not being noticed kind of thing. And that's the struggle for me right now is like, I think I have something that's good, but that's like myself and my attachment to it, and it's like my baby. Like it's like no one
Hmm.
thinks their
Hmm.
kid is ugly, obviously.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And coming to terms with the fact that maybe my content isn't what people want to consume, and like all those kind of thoughts come into play. So I have to like, that's what I'm kind of battling, is like those kind of, I want to say negative self-talk, but just being realistic and be like, well, maybe people don't want to consume this type of content in, the esports space, or maybe it's, the guests that I have aren't as entertaining as I'd hoped, or that I think they
Hmm.
are when I talk to them. There's a lot of things that play into it, but right now that's kind of the things that I'm playing is against in my mind, is like the not being noticed thing, and like just struggling to get people to comment or share or tweet and like just care about the show in general. And I'm a month in, so I'm trying to remind myself to be practical and be like, okay, it might not happen for a year or 2 years. Like it might be one of those cases where people don't care for that type of content, or people aren't noticing it yet and they don't have exposure to it yet. And it could be any time. Like the show could pop at any time and be like the most best or the best esports podcast ever, or a top esports podcast, and it could be picked up by big news outlets and like shared across the world, or everything in between. So that's what I'm struggling with now, is like just getting the mindset right of just put your head down, like you said earlier, put your head down and work and produce something that you're really happy with, and let the market decide if they like it, or let the industry decide if they like it or not.
Yeah, I think I really wish I remembered more like how the first year of my podcast went. I cannot remember the numbers because I switched like hosting services multiple times. Like I lost all those statistics, so I don't even know like what my download numbers for episode 1 is. And I feel like we had a decent start. Like it wasn't huge, but we didn't have 0 listens like from the start. We were getting like 20 and stuff, because I think we gained a few fans like individually, me and Blake. We gained a few fans when we were on Sarcastic Summoners for that short stint. Maybe like 20, 50 people. And then since that podcast went under, when we actually created the Lola podcast, like people like, oh, we like tweeted them out and stuff like that. But then I think we like steadily grew because we were making good content, and like I was sharing it was easy to share with friends because like a lot of my friends were playing LOL too.
Sure.
And then they shared it. So it was easy because I was asking my friends to share it rather than like random strangers that don't know me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until we were making content for a while, and I think it was like a year and a half in or a year in, where we challenged the Trinity Force podcast, which is probably the biggest podcast in League of Legends, at least amateur podcast. And we challenged them to like a 3v3 or best of 3.
Nice.
And they should have totally beaten us. They were higher rated than us, but then I think one of their players had a sub in who was like bronze, so he was like low rated, and we played out of our mind, and we pretty much destroyed them in 2 games. And because this is live stream, there was so much trash talk, like it was actually hyped up that and then there was actually some controversy, like some like serious assault between both of us that we've gotten over now. But I mean, it was really good, as competition and like cocky people, it just happens, right? And it wasn't until I think we had a huge spike where we increased like 50%, and then from there it was like a steady growth, because we eventually got numbers where it was much easier to grow, right? Being rich means like it's easier to get even richer, right?
Yeah.
So same thing with listeners. If you have more listeners, it's easier to get even more listeners. So it wasn't until we had that one breakthrough, which was maybe strategic, where we actually like busted through. But we had like a year and a half worth of content where we actually recorded like all but 3 episodes late.
Yeah.
So we recorded 52 episodes in our first year. Some of them were late. Some of them we did like 2 episodes in that week because it was Christmas the weekend before or something like that. But we were consistent. We were creating content, and we were really focusing on community because it was easy to play with each other. I don't know about your Discord channel. Like, I don't know how it would be easy to create a community about people that want to listen to narratives in esports. Not saying that there is not a way to do it. I don't know. Yeah, but I think the way.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, okay. So, the cool thing about what you're doing is I think you're making so much content very quickly. If you're able to keep that up, that just means more shots at the basket, more shots on goal, right?
Yeah.
Until you actually score. Just by the numbers, you are going to score. And as long as your content is good, and I think your content is good, and I think there's plenty of room for improvement, but you're at a very good start. It's not like you listen to episode 1 of our podcast and like, oh, it's so cringy, With yours, I don't think so. I think you started off pretty strong and you will only get better. So I think you're at a really good start. And just when you get a big streamer on, or that one guy that actually like retweets and like really helps you push that episode
Yeah.
and retweets everything you put out, the micro content you put out, like that's when suddenly it's like boom, Spencer is a household name.
Yeah, and that's what I like. I've had a couple, I would say, really popular people on so far. One of them was
Mhm.
James Chen. He's pretty popular in the fighting
Yeah.
game community. Super
He's also a
popular.
great guest too.
Yeah, he's super cool, dude. Really fun to talk to. Super passionate about esports. He's the type of person that like you can be like, so what does that mean? And he'll just go on for like a half an hour and like just give you incredibly good, explanation of anything. And
Hmm.
I've got another guest coming on from the fighting game community called Smug. He's a fighting game player. I've got the somebody from Battlefy coming on
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
later on in the episodes. I've got another person from the collegiate scene. So
Cool, cool.
I'm getting more and more popular guests, and I'm definitely trying to reach out to more well-known guests as well.
Hmm.
I'm trying to fall on the side of like people that are kind of well known in the industry or that are doing stuff unique. One person that I'm talking to tomorrow or Tuesday, tomorrow, is Jason Dockton from Anxiety Gaming, and
Okay.
they do stuff. They do something kind of interesting, and I'm really excited to talk to him about it because it's something that I think is really underserved in gaming. And they do Anxiety Gaming is a 501c3 nonprofit, and they do a lot of stuff for mental health. So they use, and
Hmm.
I don't know all the details because I'm just getting this from like their website and stuff like that. But they do a lot of stuff with gaming to help people with mental disorders or mental disabilities, or mental health issues, and they use video games and I think art and kind of some tangible stuff to help people overcome some of those things or to cope with them and recover from some of those things. So I think what they're doing is really unique. So I'm excited to talk to them. So I'm trying to get guests that have a unique story. But with that, kind of getting back on topic a little bit, is I find myself comparing myself to other podcasts, and I know that's like the worst thing you can do is like just comparing yourself to other people because everyone has their own thing. It's like their own
Uh-huh.
circumstance. But there's a lot of esports podcasts. Like when you start looking at it, there's actually quite a few podcasts in esports shows. And I just saw another one the other day, or actually tonight. It's a Counter-Strike podcast, and I forget the name of it. It's like something peaking advantage or something like that. But
Okay.
it's from a couple Counter-Strike pros, and they've put together a group of guys that talk about Counter-Strike and the news and current events and stuff like that.
How
And
big are those kind of podcasts
that's the
that
thing.
you're finding?
I looked at it, and their Twitter following is kind of small right now. It's like 500 or 700 or something like that. But I go to their
Okay.
YouTube, their latest video, and it's like got 17,000 views or something like that.
Because
And
it's
I'm like,
pros. Yep.
yeah, I'm like, they kind of have an advantage because they're already known in the space. They're pro players, so
Mhm.
they kind of have an advantage in that point. And I'm like, man, I'm like starting from nothing. Like I've got nothing and no one, and like starting from zero. And it's like it's just a struggle of not comparing yourself and just
Oh
realizing
yeah.
you have different circumstances and different, you know, advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah. Yeah, we forget the struggles that they probably went through too, right? I mean, they're pro players. They got good somehow and they
Right.
got their audience somehow, and then they're able to easily get a podcast together. Like one of the most popular League of Legends podcasts is Beyond the Rift, which is hosted by
Hmm.
two of the most popular streamers for League of Legends on Twitch. And they're
Sure.
both ex-pro players, so they went through a lot and they're both very good. And
They're both on
Scara,
Equifax now, right?
yeah, the Xbox Dream Team meme team,
Yep.
and like uh like I look at the production, I'm like, your audio quality is so bad. Like, oh, you guys need to do this. I'm like, oh, okay, your graphics are all right. Your overlays are pretty good. Like you, And hopefully Echo Fox is going to put some, I don't know if Echo Fox will do anything with that because I think it's a personal brand stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I actually contacted them like, hey, let me help out. And I was in conversations with like their managers and stuff like that for a little bit. And just things fell through because I was actually really upset. They did not want to lower their YouTube views by creating an audio podcast. And I was like, but you want bigger reach, but I get it because you're making money only through YouTube. And I'm like, it's painful because I'm thinking like long term, this is great because you just want more people listening.
Yeah.
But they're focusing on the short term, like monetary gains. Then again, I have no idea how to run a business and what things are going on in the background. So I can't blame them and I can't like complain too hard about this. But yeah, it was painful where I'm just like, I'm not even an audio engineer and I can make this sound like 10 times better. Just let me do it. Give it to me. Like, let me do it or I'll make it better. But yeah, it's just, yeah, it's such a slippery slope when you start comparing yourself. It's so dangerous.
Yeah. You know, it's just everyone has their own circumstances and everyone has their own things. And, you know, you just got to kind of realize that while they might have an advantage somewhere, you know, you might have an advantage somewhere else. Like, I think I'm most certainly creating different content than what they're creating. Like, I'm asking different questions. I'm a single host. All the podcasts have multiple hosts. So I'm differentiating myself that way. The questions that I ask, the topics that I go into, I'm differentiating myself that way. It's just a matter of if I can get enough eyeballs on it and if that content is, you know, something that's going to be well received by the community. So
yeah, gotcha. We're reaching the hour mark. Is there any last thing you want to talk about? I know you mentioned something before we actually hit the record button about the whole jab and right hook thing.
Yeah, like I noticed on my OBS a couple times that my mic was muted. So like a couple times here and there I might have like silence parts. So I don't know what you've recorded.
I have not recorded anything. Crap. Probably should have.
No, that's fine. I think it'll be funny. You know, it just is what it is. But yeah, I was thinking about jab versus right hook, and I'm like thinking about the stuff that I'm putting out. Like I'm putting out quotes, videos with like captions and links and stuff like that, and little blurbs of like, yeah, follow me, you know, follow me on Snapchat, join my Discord, and I'm trying to like figure out for myself what's a jab and what's a hook. And because
before you go on real quick, I know that we're not talking to the people that are listening to this, but I think I might need to say something here. If you guys aren't familiar with the whole jab and right hook concept, Gary Vee put out a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. It's basically jabs are, you know, in a boxing ring, you don't just right hook someone and knock them out. You have to jab, 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 and then finally when the opportunity strikes, you right hook to KO them. For marketing, the jab is like you give, and then the right hook is when you ask for something, when you're trying to complete that sale, and if that's the situation. But yeah, it's when you ask. So just so you're not super lost about what we're talking about.
Thanks, because I probably would have went on and on and on, like expecting everyone to completely understand. So I appreciate you jumping in there and filling that in. But yeah, like I'm thinking about like my content and like ultimately I want people to subscribe to my show, follow me on Twitter, you know, like take some sort of action to engage with me and like be a part of the conversation. So I'm trying to like define what a jab is versus what a right hook is. And, you know, just that, and because my podcast is free, like I don't monetize it in any way right now. Like I don't ask for donations. I don't have a Patreon. Like I'm not selling t-shirts. I'm not selling anything except like following me or subscribing and stuff like that. So I think kind of like my right hook maybe is like subscribe or follow me or, you know, follow me on Snapchat, join our Discord. I think those are kind of my right hooks for what I'm doing. And then my jabs are like, here's the content, you know, like here's this quote, like, so, and I think I got to be cognizant of that when I produce content and maybe not mix the two. Like here's a quote and by the way, or maybe I do. That's kind of the things I think about. I don't know what you feel like.
Yeah, I think, it's tricky because there's a mindset where yes, you have to keep giving, and when when have you given enough to finally ask, right? And with every person, that's going to be different. Some people are going to just be like, wait, you're asking for money to do your thing? Like, no way. Like, you greedy son of a, like,
Yeah.
that happens. And people don't understand that there's a lot of time and effort and financial costs to do things. Oh, it's so hard. Like, for example, we have a Patreon, and that funds our podcast when it comes to financial like costs.
Mm-hmm.
Ignoring time, financial costs, it's totally covering everything we do and even giveaways that we do and stuff like that. And I still like don't feel that comfortable about bringing up Patreon much. I probably should ask more, but I don't. And that's mostly because I feel like I haven't given enough yet, and
Yeah.
I think that's being hard on myself because I'm sure I have. We have people that are like, we get weekly or monthly, we hear like, oh my gosh, like I finally got out of bronze because of you guys. Like I've been listening to your podcast and I climbed like 2 divisions or something. Like we hear that pretty often. It's great. It feels great. But I feel like right now, like Lola as a business is not, that's not my plan. That's not my business plan. Lola is not my business plan. So because of that, my personal way is like I'm just giving. And yes, my right hooks are going onto our Patreon and donating if you feel like it. But the easy right hooks are, at least for our scope, is like, yeah, follow us on Facebook. That's a big one we keep pushing.
Yep.
And I think morally or ethically or whatever you want to call it, as long as you feel like you've given enough, I think it's perfectly fine. I don't like people asking for likes and subscribe at the beginning of like YouTube videos, because I think you haven't, unless you've been doing it for a while or you're really providing really great content. Not saying you're not providing really good content,
Sure.
but I think it's something that you do at the end, which is weird because on YouTube you're supposed to ask for it for the beginning and keep reminding them to hit that subscribe button and all that stuff. But then like it's annoying, right? And you're dealing with people, and I feel like that's not going to convert really important audience members.
Yeah.
You're just going to get the flaky ones that subscribe at the beginning or like you're at the beginning, rather than like after the whole thing's done, you ask them to subscribe and like or share. And then those are the guys that actually will be beneficial in liking, subscribing, and sharing.
Yeah, and like it's one of those things. It's like if people know how to subscribe, they know how to follow, and it's not like you reminding them is just like saying, "Hey, I would appreciate it if you like the content. Give me a follow." It's not that they don't know how or don't know where to go to do it. I feel like it's almost like I don't know. It's one of those things it's difficult to really pinpoint, but I feel like I agree with what you're saying. Like if you feel good about it and you feel like you've provided good value and you're perfectly fine asking for whatever it is, like that's perfectly fine. And I don't think you can necessarily ask too much. I think people will get annoyed by it and things like that. There's probably a point where it's like just spammy, but for you and I and like what we're doing, like we probably ask for things like on the low end. So for us right now, like I feel like, how much we ask to get people to subscribe, especially early on where, at least for me, my audience is still very, very small. So me asking is just kind of like encouraging people to help spread the word and, share with friends and things like that. If it feels all well and good for me to ask people to do that because I feel like, what I'm doing is good for them.
I think the one way you could improve on phrasing the right hook or the ask is that not hiding it, but giving them a reason to. One thing that I was trying to do, which I haven't really committed too much and I haven't been as diligent just because I want to do, what I want to ask is be like, hey, if this has helped you, or if you have a friend that you think would be benefit from learning about last hitting, because this episode is about last hitting, like send it to them, right? So it's not really, it's like a hidden ask. There's like a hidden agenda to it, but it's like it's like if you want your friend to improve on this, if your friend has an issue with raging, tell them to listen to this episode.
Yeah.
And I don't really think that's an ask. I don't think it's tricky either. I don't feel like I'm manipulating my followers doing that. So when it comes to like 5-star iTunes reviews, that's pretty much a flat out ask. I can't think of any reason why you'd be like, oh, do this to help yourself. But if it's like, hey, if you like this quote, like if you believe in this quote, retweet this or something like that,
Yeah.
Or if you have a friend that's thinking about CS, like going into the amateur or joining their collegiate club in CS:GO, like send them this so they can learn more about it.
Yeah.
Like I think that's a good way to ask for something, or a good way to benefit you without really doing that right hook or asking. And again, I don't think it's manipulative either.
No, because it's relevant, right? It's like, it's exactly what you said. And I've done a little bit of that, and it's stuff I have to do more. Good. And particularly, one thing I'm remembering is the last episode I did with Eric, who's the photographer. He's at ex-Captain EO, Eric Olson. What I did was a couple of quotes that I put out was like, or a couple of the, the promo tweets that I put out was like, if you're looking to get into esports photography or kind of grow your career in esports photography, check this out. So I do kind of make it relatable, and that's something that I need to be cognizant of when I'm sharing content. It's like, how would somebody else share this, or what would make this, really interest somebody else to share it with someone? Like, how can I phrase this so someone would want to share it to their communities, and like just creating shareable content, retweetable content.
Yeah, and I think whatever we do, we have to make it it strategically makes sense, but I also think it just makes sense that we can't make it cumbersome. That's why I hate asking for iTunes reviews, even though we do every now and then, because I know it sucks to do it, especially if you're not on a Mac or if you don't have an Apple device. So it's hard for me to ask that. But if it's like, what I don't like is at the end of episodes, we're like, oh, come follow us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group here. Episodes in the links in the description. We also have a Twitter. Go follow us on Twitter. Yeah. Oh, we also have an Instagram follow. And then we have an Amazon affiliate link if you want to help support the podcast financially. Oh, we have a Patreon. Like, I'm like, oh my God. And I know that's all important. And somehow you have to get that across to your viewers. So if they want to give, they know how to, because sometimes that's also the difficulty. People just don't know how to do whatever. But oh my gosh, it's too much. It's like too much asking. I think it sounds bad, and I don't feel good doing that.
Yeah, I think one or two things. Like at the close of my podcast, like I'll ask for one or two things, or just one specific thing, and I'll rotate through a few things like at the end of my podcast. But I think there's a certain level of discovery that I think is interesting to people too. Like if somebody has to go onto Google to kind of find you out, or like find out where your show is, I almost feel like that discovery is almost enticing to people. Like I feel like they kind of want the chase of being like, wow, I really like that. Where can I find more of that? And then they go and they kind of discover it for themselves. I feel like it's kind of interesting.
Oh, I never thought of that. Never thought of that. No, I'm getting you. I'm processing that. I'm not sure if I agree, but I like it and I want to believe it. I'm trying to think, like, have I done that?
I don't know the psychological thing, but I know that with Gary Vee's content, I will, if he says something, like I will go and search for something that he said or some sort of content to kind of find it so I could remember what he put out there. And I've done that with other people too, that I was like, oh, I remember somebody put out some sort of content. What was that? And I'll go search it on, Google or Twitter or something like that to try and find it. So I do that more like with specific content, not necessarily like, Googling somebody's show to subscribe to it. But a lot of the discovery, I think the psychological part of the discovery, I think, is interesting to me. And I don't really know if that makes sense at all or not. But the other thing is, what was I going to say? The other thing is with the iTunes reviews, I think it helps with like awareness on the platform. So if you're looking for a podcast in iTunes and you type in esports, if you have good rate, and this is difficult particularly for esports because all of the sports podcasts like Barstool and ESPN and the traditional sports podcasts are all super, super popular. So it's difficult because esports has sports in the name. It's never going to like search well for esports.
Mhm.
But in just iTunes in general, like I ask for iTunes reviews because I feel like if I get some clout on iTunes let's say I get 700 reviews on iTunes, it's definitely going to help. It might not necessarily help people find me on other platforms but iTunes, but it'll help me rank a little bit better, so it'll come up more in search results and things like that. But or something else related to that, but I can't remember.
And I think you do a good job asking with that at the end, because it's short and sweet, and it's not like, hey, give me an iTunes rating so we can like get the show up on the ranking. It's like, no, if you enjoy the show, give 5 stars. If you don't, then tell me why. I think that's really clean. And one thing that I actually, when I do iTunes reviews, like, oh, if you want to help out the show, like, it really helps us out if you give iTunes review. I think that's actually wrong. I should be saying like, what I should be saying is like, hey, if you want our community to grow and get more exposure, because I try to emphasize like it's our community, it's not us, and a lot of our content comes from people asking for that content.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I should be saying, if you want to help the community gain more awareness and more traction on the iTunes podcast charts, like, go give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, or give us a rating on iTunes.
Yeah, and
so people will be enticed to join.
Yeah, I like saying, what I like saying is like, if you enjoy my content and if you're looking for a way to give back, like I don't do Patreon right now, I don't do donations or anything like that, but if you want to give back to the show, the best way to do it is to leave feedback, good or bad. Feedback is engagement, and I can react to it, whatever the feedback is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's really good. I'm still stuck up on this whole like journey and finding someone. So I'm just like, I like need like to sleep on that one.
I know. I
like
don't,
it.
I don't really know like the whole psychological factor there, but I know that. Oh, I know what I was going to say. With Gary Vee's podcast, I listen to his podcast every single day for a few months, probably at least, before I actually left him a rating. So I listened to him every single day for at least 2 to 3 months of him saying, hey, if you like the show, give me a 5-star rating, or, I'd love a 5, but if you, whatever his thing is at the end, give me a rating on iTunes. I listened to it like every day for like 2 to 3 months. And then I was like, you know what, I'll find it, I'll do it. I'll leave a rating. And I enjoyed the content completely the whole time, but it wasn't until I heard it that 140th time I was like, oh, all right, I'll leave one now. You know what I mean? And I didn't feel bad.
I hear it another 50 times because I haven't done it yet, and I feel bad now that you mentioned it.
So there must be something that's like, we hear that like, hey, if you care about the show, like leave us a rating, and it's like, I'm busy now, I'll do it another time kind of thing. But if you keep just reminding people in a nice way, and you're giving value and then asking, like, I think that's the key to it. It's just keeping up and making sure you are throwing the hook, and you're not forgetting to do it and leaving it out.
I think actually Gary needs to switch up that pre-recorded audio every now and then. I think that'll kind of shock people into like just glazing over it.
Yeah, he actually
change it up.
He actually just changed his intro recently, I think.
Oh, there you go.
I listen to his podcast like every day.
I'm basically a Gary V Jr. I'm a genius apparently.
Wait, hold on. There we go. Oh wait. See if I can play it.
This is the Gary V audio experience. 'Cause we're gonna be legends. There he is. All right, brother.
And then he goes right.
He changed up the intro, right?
Yeah. Which I like.
I meant the outro. The
iTunes
outro? When he asked for the iTunes. Yeah. I think he needs to switch that up a little bit to like give a shock. Like, oh wait, he usually says this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I should do iTunes. Switch it up every like 10 episodes or something.
When we share this, or if we share this or whatever like that, Gary V, if you could please retweet the Lola podcast and Esports
Basically
narrative.
an hour-long advertisement for Gary Vee.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
pretty much like, if you don't follow Gary Vee, like obviously Sam and I really enjoy his content. He's definitely someone who is inspiring to us in what he's doing. He's not the only person that is doing good stuff, but he's just one that is really front of our eyes. So
Yeah, absolutely.
all right,
All right. Let's
we've
wrap
talked
it up.
long enough.
Yeah, we have talked. I don't think we even talked about a lot of the bullet points that we want, like we even initially listed, which I think is cool that we just naturally came up with stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Really good.
I think this one was a lot of like self-reflection and on like just like content. We talked about burnout and kind of like our mindset for that. So I think it was like some self reflection kind of things, and a Gary Vee advertisement.
Yeah, basically, it's so ridiculous.
The title: Self Reflections and a Gary Vee advertisement.
Yeah, there you
Podcast
go.
Self Reflections.
There was a vlog where I was like, I was trying to hack it. I was like, replied to Daily V 136 or something like that. So I was like hoping like I would overlap on search results, and I talked about like, I thought it was a good idea because I'm responding to something he said in it,
Mm-hmm.
and like what my thoughts are, whether I agree or disagree.
Yeah.
And I think like a few of those got good, like a spike in views, and it was easy to do on Twitter too, because if you just like at Gary Vee or like hashtag something, and people, Gary Vee fanatics will see every tweet that he puts out or that he's tagged in. Like it got some traction.
Yeah, and he's doing like he's got the Ask Gary Vee. So I think one thing that I might try is like just being up on like who he has on a guest, and if it's like somebody in something that might overlap with what we're doing, like I might make like a video question to ask him or something like that, and tag him, and just try and hack the show that way too. Of like just get a question on his show and be like, hey,
Yeah, that would be good too.
Yeah.
All right.
This is good though. I think we should do it again sometime and talk about some more topics that we didn't cover. And I don't know. I think I had like 5 minutes that was muted or something like that, but I'll go through it. And
I mean,
check
if it
out.
was super good, we could just always like just talk about it next time or something, since we lost it.
Yeah.
I could talk about any of those topics probably over and over again anyway.
Yeah, it was like it was one of the first topics we talked about with like content and IGN and that kind of thing. Like I got it the first time, I think. Maybe I don't remember.
Oh, okay. So I might be able to just figure out a way to plug it in there.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Oh, I wanted to ask you, the interview the episode 11 that I was on. Would I be able to get that file and just post it on the Lola feed as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that should be able to get
Send you a-
traction. And as much as I want to like just like retweet it, that just people will automatically download that episode from the Lola feed, whether they like it or not, and more of them will hear it probably than just me retweeting it, which I did. And yeah, I don't know how many views or listens that got, but it could bring some traction headed towards your way too. Hopefully, that'd be really nice.
Yeah, definitely. So it's, how big is this?
Oh, I mean, I could just
Oops.
probably download it from your website, right?
Yeah, you can download from the website. I'm just seeing how large it is. It's like 32 megs. But yeah, you should be able to download the Esports Narratives / episode 11. And
Oh, the esports narrative. That's what that. Okay.
yeah. And I want to say, did I remove the download links? No, did I? Maybe I did.
You should probably put those back on.
I know, right?
Unless there's a good reason you don't have it. I think you probably should put it back on.
I didn't have it on because I had another audio player like underneath, and it kind of looked sloppy.
Oh, so you just switch things up or something.
Yeah, so let me do this.
What are you hosting? You're hosting off of Libsyn, and then
Yeah.
what is your website? Is it Libsyn as well? Does Libsyn? Double
No, it's
down
just
or
a
something?
WordPress.
Okay.
Yeah, just WordPress. I can get you a link to download it though. And we're almost at 1,500 downloads all time, which is pretty sweet.
Nice.
I got,
That's great.
I think I was at like 12 or 1,300 in the first month. Like the first official month, it was like 12 or 1,300.
Oh yeah, that's not bad.
All right, link.
Ooh, you got those click to tweet boxes. That's nice. I'm so sick of my website. I'm like, uh, I don't yeah, I have no idea if I should be spending more time on my website. I just kind of think it doesn't matter, but it probably does matter. I don't know.
There you go.
There's too much to do.
Yeah, my website, I bought like a $40 theme, and I was like, this looks good, and
Okay.
I just threw it together. I'm an IT guy. Like I could design it better. I
Mhm.
just haven't putting a lot of I haven't put the effort in to make it like super legit yet.
I mean, I think it's good enough.
There's
Like, again,
almost
like how you said about the hours, yeah, to put into
Yeah.
everything. Like,
yeah.
I think it's fine. Yeah, I think it looks nice. I like it. It's nice and clean, and I like the controller graphic that you used.
Thanks.
Yeah, looks good.
I sent a link in Hangouts. I don't know if you can grab
Yeah,
it
I got
from
it.
there.
I'm downloading it right now.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, I'm grabbing.
Yeah, and I have
Downloads.
I also have like the raw audio too. Like if you want, that's like the finished product. If you want, I can send you the raw. That's
This should be fine. Yeah, this will be good. And you're saving me time because I could post this as a mini-sode
there you go.
instead of a full episode. Then I don't have to record a mini-sode. I was actually gonna record an extra episode this week. What do I do? Whatever. Extra content's not a bad thing.
You know, the hardest part for me actually is like the show notes, like writing out the show notes and stuff like that.
Holy moly, your show notes are intense, man.
Because I've already done the episode. Like I've already recorded it. I know what I did and what I said and what we talked about. But having to go back through it, like it's just I'm like not bored by it, but I just know what we talked about and I've already consumed it. So it's like not a waste of time because I think it's good content, but it's just one of those things where you have to go back and do something you already did again, and it's hard to find someone who's like, just wants to get their feet wet, like doing something to do it for free.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy to do something that's probably really mundane for most people.
Yeah. But I think I'm gonna cut down a little bit on what I produce and do like just a sentence or two less than what I'm doing. But
I think oh wait, I'm looking at a bad example. I'm looking at your weeks and highlights because you do like timestamps and stuff like that, and I wonder like I feel like with I don't know if people are looking at timestamps and like being like, oh, this is the table of contents and I don't want to listen to the whole thing, but I want to listen to this part. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not saying it is or isn't. I have no idea. So I wonder if that's even worth your time.
Something I might do is I might just do the questions. So I might
That'll save you a lot of time.
Yeah, I might just find out where I ask the questions, be like, 15 minutes asked, and what's the best advice someone's ever given you, and like just have that in there and not have the answer, because then you don't really have to listen to it. You can just go through the show notes.
Yeah, which I do appreciate sometimes. Like I've done that, like when I'm looking back on an episode of something and I look for it and they have a summary in the show notes. Like I love that because I don't want to click through like, where was it? 30 minutes. I could control F and find it. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's I have no idea if it's worth your time or not. I cannot answer that question and I don't want to say anything.
I know.
You do a very good job on your show notes. I will have to say that though.
I appreciate it. It's a lot. There's about in half hour to 40 minutes of time to produce that.
listening to your episode like at times 4 speed or something.
Yeah, I usually do like 1.5 or 2, and I just speed through and try and get like the best parts of each like question essentially.
Gotcha. Huh. Yeah, that's a tough one. Okay, well, I gotta head to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was fun. I have no idea when we want to do this again. I probably could try next week again.
Yeah, usually weekends like at night are pretty open for me.
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty good as well. Every now and then, probably not, but that's fine. We could either make it up or find another time.
Yeah, we'll play it by
Um,
ear.
Yeah, we can play it by ear. Yeah, this week has been. I had. This week I had. One, two, three. I had like 5 meetings with people,
Wow.
and today I had meetings from like 1 to 5, and then this.
Hustling.
It was crazy. Yeah, I have a lot of. I gotta make up time for my vacation.
That's right.
That was good.
Double time.
Good. Yep. All right. I'll talk to you later, Spencer.
Awesome. Thanks. It's been fun talking to you.
Yeah. Talk to you later.
All right. See you.